very much. Okay.
Amazing. Well, it's so nice to meet all of you. As Deborah and Mary mentioned, my name is Maryanna Antoldi, and I am the Associate State Director of Communications for AARP Florida. I'm part of a small team of four. I live in Orlando, Florida, right next to Disney World, which is so much fun. But I have some other colleagues who also support our storytelling efforts, particularly with volunteers up in Tallahassee and down in Miami as well. So we cover the entire state through our work. And I'm just going to take a few minutes today to highlight our 2025 recap. So, how we really worked with volunteers at AARP Florida to capture and share stories based on really like their passions and their interests. And also, kind of how we're taking this to the next step and really engaging our volunteers in 2026. All right. Oops. There we go. So we just have three major key learnings that we learned throughout 2025. The first, from our communications perspective, our colleagues in outreach are really the experts on our volunteers. They are the ones who are at events with them almost every single week. They are the closest to our volunteers. So from a communications perspective, we really try to check in with them all the time, which I know is like so basic. Everyone checks in with their outreach colleagues, but I wanted to write this in because it's really the foundation of our storytelling efforts. You know, what events are they hosting in the next few months? But more importantly, which volunteers are leading those events and what are their stories? Because if a volunteer is leading those events, that automatically means they have a passion for that particular topic. And that's something that we really want to dig into. So that's sort of the foundation is like making that list from all over the state of those key events that could really, either help us find volunteer storytellers that are passionate on those issues, but also highlighting those events too and why they matter to the communities. Our second major key learning is really building those personal relationships. And this is my favorite part of the work that we've done this year is our volunteers are like some of our volunteers are like my besties. I text them all the time, just checking in, saying, hi, I'm sending some Christmas cards to some this year. Make those personal introductions, even if it's like a Zoom call or a
Oh, I'm
Teams
sorry.
call.
This is it. Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay.
I think I hear someone. Are we all on
Yes.
mute? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
she just went back.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So, just really making those introductions to those interested volunteers, those volunteers that express interest in storytelling or are very comfortable talking to media or sharing their personal experience, whether it be they were a veteran or they worked with the Social Security Administration a lot in their past job. Just building those connections from there and also sharing your personal story can help them share their personal story, right? So just really building that like layer of trust between you and your volunteers. And then finally, we always are encouraging our volunteers' passions. So, are some volunteers interested in sharing their stories in certain ways? A good example of this is we have a volunteer named Bob Bush. He's in Tampa Bay, Florida. He loves talking about veterans issues. That is his passion. And our outreach colleague in the Jacksonville area actually helped him launch a virtual webinar series about veterans issues. And then from the communications perspective, I have helped him amplify that. So he actually works on a newsletter every month to send out to different veterans. So I help him out with that. And it's a way that really helps him feel involved and share his story, and kind of through AARP share other veteran stories and get to make those connections with them as well. So really getting to know the volunteers, like checking in with outreach, asking for those foundational names, building relationships with them, and then really honing in and encouraging those passions. If you see like a volunteer, for example, with like an iPad in the air, I'm like, okay, she likes to take pictures. Like I want to talk with her. And now she is like is our like unofficial photographer in the Jacksonville area, for example. So just kind of keeping an eye out and encouraging those passions is, I'd say, the most important thing. Does anyone have any questions on this particular slide? No? Okay, silence is good. All right, I'm moving on to the next one. So I have some examples of how we both recruited some new volunteers and got some general storytellers on AARP's top issues. So this was in partnership with my outreach colleague in Jacksonville. We actually launched a Google Forms survey for a $500 Visa gift card. We did this 3 times over the year. This is our first one. It was in March, so we themed it to Shamrocks and Social Security. And the last 2 questions were in 2 to 3 sentences. Explain why Social Security is important to you. So that's where they got to fill out their stories. Are you open to share your Social Security story with AARP? That's when they hit yes or no, and that's how we know that they can become storytellers for us. And then finally, the last step, and this question wasn't able to fit in the slide, was are you interested in becoming an AARP volunteer? You may be contacted for follow up. So, over the 3 surveys, we actually received 4,000 answers to the yes question for becoming storytellers. So, we were able to submit those to the national office. And then a little under 700 yeses to volunteer engagement. So my colleagues in outreach are kind of parsing through those names and responses to see who is interested. But that was a really fun and successful idea that we had to really generate not only some storytelling for key AARP issues, but also get the word out about our volunteer efforts and how folks can get involved with us. Another way that we love to loop our volunteers in is through video. So we've learned a lot this year that video is king. And I've really worked hard this year to get volunteers comfortable with being on camera, being comfortable with someone filming around them. It's been like a lot of explaining, but when we ultimately learn that when you see yourself represented on screen, it's not only great recognition, but it also encourages folks to do more and to, become more active with us. So I have 2 examples of videos that we've integrated with volunteers. We actually have featured a few fraud fighter volunteers on social media discussing their personal fraud experiences. We have like a Friday social media series. So we've had a handful of volunteers talk about their passions on this. This particular volunteer, Karen, is very passionate about romance scams. So she talked all about that on tape. And then right underneath it, we have an interview with Ken, who is our president, our state president of volunteers. And he's talking about the importance of Social Security. So we're really trying to, limit staff voices and faces and really make our volunteers into the faces of AARP Florida, because without them, we wouldn't be able to accomplish half of what we do. And then this last video I actually have uploaded, but this was a little hit from our volunteer meeting that we posted on social media. If you can't hear it, it's okay. There's no words. It's just like some perky music in the background. So I'm just going to hit play. So this video kind of had a dual purpose, right? It's not only showing how much fun our volunteers have, but it's also a recognition element for them too, that, they're getting recognized on social media for their efforts. And then as a result, we can generate volunteer recruitment from that. So that's like some digital ways that we've been sharing our volunteer stories. Does anyone have any questions on those before I move on to the next slide?
I have some questions, but I'll wait until the end.
Hey.
Okay. Thank you.
Another way that we've been working with our volunteers is we've really worked on posting stories that involve them very heavily. So when we have a bulletin story, we always try to lean into volunteers as much as we can. So this, I actually mentioned Bob. He was featured in a bulletin article just last month about veterans benefits. And so he got to speak a little bit about his veteran seminar and his experience as a veteran. We also are working on a story actually with OVE right now about some AARP Orlando volunteers that became such good friends that they went on a trip to Turkey for a week and a half together, and they now have a travel club, which we love. So they all have like a group chat now. It's a really compelling story. So they've been sharing information. And then we also want to make sure that volunteers are recognized through and through. So this is a little sadder story, but one of our lead volunteers in the Jacksonville, Daytona area passed away. And we actually, to make his wife, like to help her and to really inform the other volunteers, we made a blog post about it because he was truly part of our family. And that's the sort of message that we're about, right? Our volunteers are part of our family. So we really want to recognize them through the end of their lives too. So that was a sadder story, but also a way that we show up for our volunteers. Oh, is that it? Oh, nope. There's one more thing that I missed. And so, kind of hopping into our next steps, we got our volunteers really comfortable with being on camera, that we are sort of working to transform a few of them into what I'm calling our storytelling scouts. So, really giving our volunteers just a few key pieces on how to take photos, how to capture videos, and how to share information about AARP on their own social channels, and really just sending them out into events that they work as sort of like communications folks. So we have a few volunteers who are really passionate about photography. So I made this photography tips and tricks sheet for them, and I share it with them. And then they can really look at this handout and they can come to me or our comms team with any questions. And we kind of like take them and guide them through it and provide them a shot list. And then they go out on their own and they take photos and they send them to us. And the slide on the right is actually a video exercise we did with them during our volunteer meeting where we pretended that they were recording video introductions. So teaching them like the easy steps of video editing too, video filming and editing that then we can use to show, their skills and share their own work on our social media channels as well. Because truthfully, for example, I cover 3 different areas around the state and I can't be everywhere. So this is a really fun way that I get to work with our volunteers and they get to use some of those passions and skills that they've honed working with us to really like share their own content on our pages. So that's what we're looking at doing in 2026 is really making them into the ones who want to, of course, building them and giving them the skills that they need to really to do a lot at the events and to share stories and tell stories at those events. And I think that's all. So, sorry, I just muted myself. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask me?
The first question that I'll ask while people are thinking is related to the slides. Are you willing to share that with this group?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll put my email in the chat as well. There you go. So that way, if you have any individual questions, feel free to reach out because I'm happy to share more information about anything I've discussed and even connect some of our volunteers with some of your volunteers, and they can even share best practices with each other.
Thank you so much, Maryanna. I can't believe it. No one has a question for you today?
Those were some fabulous, not only examples, but I like that last slide a lot because I'm one of those people who likes to take pictures, just kind of, blend in and take pictures, but that gives clear information so that someone can be that virtual storyteller, reporter, undercover, or in person out loud. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Mary, we'd be best friends if you were in Florida. I would have recruited you like already.
I would have volunteered. You wouldn't have had to recruit me.
And she is
Ask
absolutely our resident picture taker for this group. We've all been on screenshots a lot of times.
Ask Deborah, who is a master at avoiding pictures. I even get her in some
I
fabulous
know.
pictures, and she smiles. So.
Yeah.
We see folks on both ends of the spectrum. And so another thing that we always like to let our volunteers know too is I could be talking about how to film a video, but you can say no because you're a volunteer. So at the end of the day, you do what you want to do. If you don't want to take photos, that's okay. If you don't want to be on camera, that's okay. If we wait for people to kind of approach us with that, hey, I really want to do this. This is really cool. And then we kind of take it from there. But we just like to make sure that all of our volunteers now have that base of like, if I have to pick up my phone and take a picture, how do I do it? Or if I have to pick up my phone and take like a little video of someone talking, or like I just want to because this is really cool. They know how to do it.
And I think one of the most impressive things about people who know how to, use their camera and take pictures, some of the most touching and powerful photos are those that are totally unposed. You're just capturing a moment. And those are the ones that really tell a story without you even having to put any words to it. And that's kind of what I look at when I'm not speaking. I'm always looking for those stories that are just out there telling themselves. So thank you so much for sharing all of those wonderful things and letting us know what not only what Florida is doing, and the possibilities for us to share and learn from Florida. But just hearing how there's so many ways for volunteers to show up and be a volunteer that doesn't require, a lot of, it doesn't require a whole lot. We all got one of these, right? And you can't even see mine because yeah, we all have one of these. Um, and we probably all of us have a lot of photos living on there that haven't seen the light of day.
Yeah. Yeah, no. It's funny because like everyone just ends up taking photos because they're like going to events. So now we're just finding ways to say like, hey, how can we actually like share these and receive them? So yeah, we're really excited. We love our volunteers and we just want to keep recognizing them for everything that they've been doing for us.
Okay, Mariana, I do have one small question, and this may be, if it's too technical for right now. The question for me is, how are you producing the videos? I know we're all using smartphones of some kind. So is that all that's being done, or do you do something else?
How it's been working with volunteers is starting next year. The volunteers that we task with actually filming content for us that at events that the comms team can't make it to, they just send us what we call the raw footage. So just anything you take, whether it's an interview that has a few bloopers in it and it's a 2-minute clip, you can just send that to us, and then our team will actually do the editing of it into like the time length for a social media video. So volunteers don't need video editing experience either. We will happily take that load on their shoulders from a staff perspective.
Okay. Teresa has raised her hand. Teresa?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. So we had a hard time getting volunteers who wanted to take pictures or well, we asked them to take pictures of at events, right? And it didn't catch on. But then we started posting the photos in our monthly volunteer newsletter. So it went with, like, here's what this group did this month, right? And then all of a sudden, over a year, we had great photos, right? Because everybody wanted to see themselves. And then in April, we used those photos to send an email out to that community, to the members in that community, saying, here's what volunteers in your community are doing, sort of like a little newsletter. And we included the photos and we upped our click rate like to 5%, which for folks who don't know is huge, like 1 to 2% is usual. So I just wanted to share that because now volunteers, it's sort of turned into a regular thing after a couple years, and they send us after every event, they send us photos and we put them in the newsletter, but then we can use them to promote in the community to recruit more volunteers.
Thank you for sharing, Teresa. It is amazing how seeing ourselves or seeing yourselves is, just that little impetus to maybe say, well, I'd like to see some of my friends, in that newsletter. I like to see my community represented. So, um, and sometimes it just takes sending along those pictures that have already been taken because a lot of pictures are living in our phones. But that encouragement um, is really a wise way to use that. So I'm happy that you shared that example of what's going on in Alaska.
All right. Well, Maryanna, again, thank you for sharing your excitement and your insight with us and with the slides that people are going to get as well. That's wonderful. It's just going to provide additional help for people to think about how do we want to do this? What's the message? How are we going to get it out there? No, I know we didn't require or say you have to stay for the whole time, but you are welcome to stay for the remaining minutes if you wish. And we're going to move on with our discussion. But thank you so much for getting this started. Dr. Mary, are you ready for a few questions?
I am. I really, really am. But what I'm more ready for is to hear the responses, because that's where the magic happens in the 360 exchange. And I know that we have some great ideas that are blooming and blossoming from what Maryanna said, but I also know that there's some really great things that have already occurred. So my first question is this, and I'm going to put it in the chat too. Uh, Having heard Maryanna's comments about what's going on in Florida, it would be wonderful if you could share any experiences with storytelling with or about your volunteers that's happening in your state or your area. And I know that I'll give you a few minutes to let that process and marinate. But we also know that storytelling is something that AARP loves, and I know we just talked about it in our volunteer facilitation and training team member yesterday about storytelling from the events that we are able to participate in the various states and encouraging our colleagues to just snap a picture, even if you don't have time to write a whole lot about it while we're visiting various states, just snap the pictures and then we can create the story after that. So, does anybody want to share any experiences or any wonderful things that are going on about telling stories with or about your volunteers that we could gain from in this exchange today? And I see the Ethels are represented here strongly. And I know the Ethels always have some stories to tell. So I'm not going to call on anyone specifically because I know all of you are very gifted in sharing. So after JR goes, I'd love to hear what the Ethels are doing because it's some fabulous stuff. JR, we want to hear you, so we want you to unmute because we don't hear a word.
Does this microphone work?
That
Yes.
microphone is perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I was not muted.
Oh, okay.
So one of the great things that volunteers can do to help share their story is when we host our cafecitos in California, what we do is we have table conversations over a meal where volunteers are kind of leading that discussion, where they're talking about AARP and some of the things that we offer. And in doing so, our volunteers oftentimes will tell stories about their experiences as a volunteer, which attracts our attendees to become new volunteers. And then we've kind of followed the whole Cafecitos way here with a new Chow and Conversation, which is for veterans and military families. And so it's kind of a very similar thing where our veterans volunteers are talking about our veterans and military family resources and events. And really, it's invaluable because our volunteers are talking about their own volunteer experiences. And so it's worked very well. And then something new that I just did last 2 months ago was I did a slice of pie for a slice of your time.
Ah,
And it was our volunteer recruitment event. We were looking for specific volunteers to support certain programs that we do in Sacramento. And again, it was very similar where they were table conversations led by a volunteer, where those stories really came out. And at that volunteer recruitment event, serving Marie Callender's pie, we actually had 23 new volunteers sign up on the spot that day. And so, really, the power of the volunteer story and having kind of those more intimate conversations, I think, is very helpful.
that's tremendous. I love all those themed events, chow and conversation, and a slice of pie for a slice of your time. That's fabulous. And of course, we know about the cafecitos. They're very popular. So thank you so much, JR.
Sure.
Anyone else? Stories, are they out there?
Well, you recognize the Ethels. Yay, Ethels. And we're grateful for that. Um, we've been we've been really, really busy. We just started maybe about a year and a half ago, and our first year we were kind of like I don't know, we were really trying to get our bearings. Some of us were brand new to AARP. We didn't even know how AARP worked. We didn't know anything about the kinds of processes and criteria that were going on. We didn't know anything about the organization. We were all pretty green, but we were on retreat the beginning of November, first week in November, and um, we we did we did a lot more leadership training at that, which was great. The bonding that occurred during that time amongst all of the leadership team was just terrific, and we're really starting to um, take more and more ownership of some of the projects that we have going on. And each of us has at least one or two different projects that we're working on. Um, some of them by ourselves, some of them, small groups of us. Our volunteer recruitment, um, led by Gwen and Justine, has really taken off this year. Um, they've organized into meet and greets and personal discussions about what our volunteers might be looking for, and so we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and we're really looking forward to next year to kind of try to, hone this new bond that we have amongst us to further the initiative on behalf of social isolation and loneliness for senior women.
And I think, Linda, thank you so much for sharing that. That in itself is a story about the ethos and the evolution. We were in a meeting last week, I think it was Wednesday, and I think the number of 50,000 kind of came into the conversation that the ethos have, this groundswell of interest in being social among women has elevated itself to become this group of over 50,000 women strong across the U.S. that typically, like Linda said, did not step into this to be an AARP volunteer. They stepped in to fight social isolation, to interact with other women, and the criteria still does not remain that they have to be an AARP volunteer, but what you're learning about AARP and all the things that AARP does and has to offer, the spirit of volunteerism certainly is amongst some of those 50,000 women in that group. So that's where that additional groundswell of volunteers, actual volunteers, are coming from. So I'm just excited to see how the Ethels are evolving and are changing the lives of women to have this place where they can go and be with each other, have fun. I've had the pleasure of talking to Justine about some of the activities that are going on in the Missouri area. Gwen has shared in meetings some of the things that are going on in her area, and it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. These are the kind of stories that people don't know about. These are the kind of stories that can make people think, maybe I need to look at that AARP, or maybe I need to look at that Ethel's group, because in each of those stories is something that can relate to someone who has a need to connect. And we know that social isolation is something that we're fighting hard to make sure that people don't have to be socially isolated, whether it's in the virtual space. And I know that there's several things that are going on virtually that can help even reach those who are homebound. But those who want to be out and about and meet in person, there's all kind of things that are happening. And those stories from that are those rich stories. A picture, again, is worth 1,000 words. And Justine, I'm just going to share a conversation that we had um, when I was in Missouri a couple months ago. You showed me these beautiful pictures of these events. You went out to some farm, and these pictures were almost like worthy of a Nobel Prize because they were just so touching. But the smiles on the faces of these women, these strangers who went out to this farm, this woman opened up her farm and they made soap. Or Justine, tell me just a little bit about that. Tell that story, girl.
Okay, well, it's something we like to do. Well, I like to do here, so everybody likes to come with me. But we go to a farm. It's about an hour away from where I live. We make a day of it. We go and have a goat milk soap making class. So you pay a fee and you are able to make 9 bars of soap that you actually use. I mean, these are full-size bars, probably an inch thick at least. Um, you get to pick your own scent, your own colors, and it has to cure for about 3 weeks at least. So we have fun doing that. That same day we go have lunch somewhere after we're done. Uh, while we're at the farm, we get to look at all the stuff on the farm. You know, she's got chickens and goats and cows and um, people that live in the city, don't get to see that very often, unless they have people that live on farms that they visit. But anyway, then we go to lunch the same day, go to lunch. So we make pretty much a whole morning and part of an afternoon of it. And then the 3 weeks later, when we need to go pick up our soap, we also go back to the farm. We chit chat, visit a little with the lady that owns the farm, her and her husband, and she's got 3 little boys now, all boys. Um, and then we go have lunch again. And, it's kind of a recurring thing. So we usually go a couple of times a year, sometimes three. But she's had some very interesting other experiences that we've done there. But we have roller derby here. We go watch them. We don't participate. We just watch roller derby. So I'm sure some of you have heard of that, right? um, Roller derby, they have professional football players, a whole team here that plays actually games that it's not like the NFL, but they have shoulder pad. I mean, these are women. Shoulder pads, the whole
Yeah.
uniform, the whole thing, and they travel and play these games in this league. So we watch them. I mean, I could go on, but anyway, that's some of it that we do. We don't just sit and eat, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Justine, and thank you to everyone who has made a comment today. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we suss out somehow is, how do we keep this kind of information in a repository that is available to use? You know, when we're building stories, where are we keeping it? How is it accessible, you know, from people? You know, if we're making the recordings, it clearly, Justine, for example, on your Ethel story, you have lots of places I'm hearing of things that could be used to encourage other people. So I would encourage the group to think even more about, not just you, but I'm saying this room of people, to think even more about how you share that information, how you capture it, and, you know, how important it is to inspire others.
And I know the example that Teresa gave about, you know, putting it in the newsletter on Facebook or whatever your social media outlets are, that's one way to do it as well. I saw Linda, you raised your hand. Did you want to add to that comment? Oh, no, Gwen. I'm sorry, it was Gwen.
I actually wanted to add, and I think you know this, to Justine's. She had some wonderful photos of the cow eating the flowers on her hat. And those were part. And I also wanted to add something in addition as to volunteers. I lead the meet and greet, and I had this woman in my meet and greet, and I asked her her name. And Linda and Justine have heard this story too many times. And when I said, "Where do you live?" I found out she lives in an area we did not have a group here in Charleston, in the South Carolina. And I got so excited, threw my hands up in the air and yelled and really was excited. She wanted to just host. And in the end, she ended up taking all the training. So she qualified to be an organizer to lead a group. And she is. And what I wanted to get to is this point. We have a thing with the Ethel is that we tell our organizers to do what they want, when they want, and where they want. And that's what I told her. And this woman went full out because she loves to do all these things. And she did so many things. She started in August, I believe it was. She has 5 members already hosting all the way from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Her group stretches all the way down to Georgia. And she's got 5 in the process, 1 already through it. And it's just because she kept going. So all we need to do is offer them that opportunity to pull their interest in, like Anna said, their passions. It's wonderful. So thanks. I appreciate this 360.
Thank you. And those stories that will come from that will be amazing.
Right. Well, Gwen, you just led into one more thing that I wanted to do. We appreciate doing the 360 and have been now for what? We finished our, let's see, we finished our 7th year. That's what this is. But I want to make sure that we continue to provide comments and discussions that you're interested in. So if you've got a cell phone here, I would love for you to pick up this QR code. It just leads to a brief survey asking what topics might be interesting for you for discussion in 26. Because this ends 25, and it's very simple, straightforward. We're not asking even for your name or anything, so you can be anonymous and say, you know, if there's some issue, but this would be the QR code and it should take you to that. We'll also put it in the group chatter so that, you know, if you didn't get it today or think you want to do something else, feel free, because by the end of December, I'd like to have the list of what our topics are going to be going forward and be able to publish that for everyone as we do in the first week of January, so that you can decide what meetings you want to attend. And of course, we hope you attend all of them, because your insights are good, even if you don't think that it might be germane to that particular topic. We find all the time something someone says triggers an action for someone else. So thank you all very much. And of course, see, Maryanna has already left, and I appreciate her being here. I'm thanking also Dr. Clark, with whom I couldn't do this because she gets me. And we work together on a lot of stuff, but I really appreciate her. And I appreciate the OVE team for the support that they give to me as a volunteer by just letting me do it however I want to, Gwen, as you're talking about. And so thank you all very much. We have reached the end of our time. I was going to mention a couple of other things. The Cultural Leadership Development series, we're going to be bumping up even more of our national sessions coming up. And starting in January, we're going to have them probably 3 times a month, which is a lot more aggressive than we've been before. We'll put all that information out in the state chatter group. So for volunteers, you'll be able to get it there, and we'll continue to send information to people. And now I see that Tara has her hand up and would love to say something.
I just didn't want you to sneak out before we had a chance to applaud you and Dr. Mary for all your hard work putting these sessions together. We just have such a great conversation in such a short period of time, every single time, no matter who's in the room, and especially to have continued this for 7 years. That is a big accomplishment. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all the work that you all put into doing this and to getting the feedback. I wish we could model this with every single meeting that we have at AARP, because I think it would be transformative. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Well, and Tara, we appreciate the comments. And again, as I said, we appreciate the support. You let us do what we feel. We've read the room, we hope. And please, people, put in your suggestions, because we do pay attention to everything you write or say. We're at the end of our time, and I'm wishing every single one of you a wonderful holiday, however you choose to celebrate it. Be safe, take care.
My heart. I can never do this.
Yeah, mine comes out looking like something weird. It's like lost eyeball, so I don't even try. So
happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, thank you all very much. Have a wonderful time. We will see you in January, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Happy 2026. We look forward to it.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Antoine.
The recording will stop, right, Deborah?
Yes, ma'am. We're stopping it now that we've said